Everybody good? All right, I am calling to order the Committee of the Whole meeting for Gahanna City Council, Monday, May the 9th, 2022. We have, as a preliminary matter, we have just one minor adjustment to the agenda. The mayor has requested that we just switch the order of items 2 and 3 on the agenda. So that we would discuss the multi-use trail first and the sidewalk program second, which will flow into the first item under C. The first item on the agenda then tonight is further discussion on amendments to, or potential amendments to council rules regarding e-comment, communications, and public input. This is an update, I believe, from Mr. Weaver and some research, I think, from on potential options. So I'll turn it over to you, Mr. Weaver.
Great. Thank you, Madam Chair. In conversations with Clerk Van Meter and just trying to get a sense based on the research that's been done, and thank you to the clerk for and Mr. Schultz for all of the work and effort that they've put into this. Just trying to get a sense, I think, from colleagues here, what, if anything, there is an appetite for. I know there's been some other suggestions that have popped up, and so just sort of requested that this be added to the agenda just so that we could potentially figure out what path we want to potentially look at. And with that, I'd like to ask the clerk, you were taking a look at a few items, possible video comment, et cetera, et cetera.
Sure, I'll comment on those things. So where council left off in discussion on e-comment, there were a few questions that I did follow up with Granicus on. One was the CAPTCHA feature. Does everyone know what a CAPTCHA is? It's like the little image that has various letters and numbers, and I want you to enter them to confirm you're not a robot. Yes, they can do this in a couple ways. One is for the initial registering for an account for the e-comment. And then the other would be an email verification. And they did recommend as best practice that this would be something that we would add or ask to be added on just to help facilitate weeding out any robots that might be trying to produce spam. The other question that was asked, can a commenter opt to not have their comment made publicly but just direct it to council? The feedback that I got on this, first they were wondering why this might be desired, because e-comment is designed as a public comment solution. So having a private or direct comment would typically be seen as problematic, if that makes sense. Because the comment is being made directly in reference to a topic or issue at a meeting, then it becomes part of the public record. And then Granicus did offer, if a group of council members or the entire council would like some sort of demonstration or wider conversation, they did offer to provide that should you desire something like that. I did send out to you an email form, the various features that e-comment offers, as well as the links to, I think, Riverside, California and Lakewood, Ohio, just to kind of explore and see what e-comment looks like on various public entity websites. And then I did have an inquiry from Ms. Padova regarding video capabilities. Mr. Schultz and I did a couple tests on this. I tried a couple short video clips just sent from my Gmail account to Mr. Schultz to see if it would upload okay. And unfortunately, something that was 3 minutes long, my Gmail account would not allow me to send it because of the restrictions on attachment size. But Mr. Schultz does believe this can be worked around. Do you want to comment on that at all?
Yeah, so I think we could potentially put in an upload feature on the website so a person who's looking to comment can drop that file in, and then us get notification that, the clerk get notification that an email has come in to this e-comment box. I would say that probably from our standpoint, IT standpoint, this could create a little bit of a support issue, we'll say, with how timely, if somebody's trying to upload a comment at 5:30, obviously staff primarily leaves at 5:30. So there could be a little bit of a challenge there. I'm not saying that it's insurmountable, but I do foresee, at least in the immediate future or immediacy, that there may be a smaller support issue with folks trying to submit.
Thank you to you both. Really appreciate that. For me, I thought Ms. Padova's, Councilwoman Padova's suggestion was relatively prescient and might potentially address some colleagues' concerns about the veracity of who might be submitting any potential e-comment. As it relates to video, do we have concerns about storage of data? Okay. That was a no for the record. And again, with that information, I think the clerk and Mr. Schultz would need some sort of general sense of where my colleagues' desires lay, if there was any interest in pursuing this any further. Certainly don't want them expending any additional resources or time if there's just not any appetite to pursue anything further on this. And I don't know if Ms. Padova wanted to talk about the video suggestion at all.
Yes, thank you. So when we started talking about this, I was fully in support that we needed to make our meetings more accessible to people who may not be able to get here on Mondays at 7, especially with it being the exact same time, exact same day of the week. If somebody has something to do every Monday, they're never going to be able to make it. But the more that I listened to everybody's comments, and when we started getting into this e-comment, it made me a little bit more hesitant. Our staff works so hard on putting our agendas together, getting all of this very factual information to us, and it concerns me that somebody would be able to go on there and make a comment that contradicts what they have presented to us, and then we would not, the next person could come on, see their comment, not open up the documents, and make their judgments off of that rather than the factual documents that are attached to our agendas. So that was kind of my biggest concern with doing the e-comments, as well as policing, like, at what point do we say we need to get rid of this comment because it's whatever it may be. If we need to get rid of comments, we don't want to get rid of comments because these should be public comments. So I think that could become a hairy situation. So I thought the thing most similar to somebody walking through these doors and speaking to us during our meetings would be submitting a video that we could play and people would be able to see. It would be entered into the record just as if they were here, but virtually. So hopefully that's something that we would be able to work out. I think that would be the most similar to what we currently are doing and to being here in person.
Yeah, Mr. Renner, please.
Thank you. Ms. Padova, I think you bring up a very unique and very interesting idea. Is it that you want to do the video in lieu of the e-comment, or do you want it sort of like addendum to it, or maybe that's not the right word, but adding to it?
Oh, I'm sorry. So yes, I would like to do the video rather than the e-comment.
Okay.
Actually, I think before we sort of move on with the discussion, I want to just clarify, I think what my understanding of what the proposal is right now, or sort of what the loose frame of this is at this point. So what I hear is that, one, comments, however they're presented, would be directly related to an agenda item or piece of legislation. And so that would be, they would have to select what potential agenda item or legislation that they were commenting on. Two, it would come from some type of registered or verified account that they would have to go through a CAPTCHA process or create create an email-based account, an email verified account with us. And three, what I'm hearing is that it would be a video comment that would be uploaded to our site, to some type of portal. That's the framework that I'm hearing emerge? Is that we're on the same page with that?
I think that's a great summary.
Okay. Okay, and
The thing is that people can come in here and say anything about anything. It doesn't have to be an agenda item.
correct.
So you're saying that it would have to be tied to an agenda item, though, the video?
I think that the idea behind why this form would be tied to an agenda item would be to help keep what's the great way to say this? Somebody else have a better way of, I think the idea would be that they can already do that via email. And so this tool would be a supplement to someone being able to come in, to call us, to send us a letter, to send us an email. This would be one more way in which they could have a comment about a particular piece of legislation.
Yeah.
Mr.
Madam
Renner,
Chair.
yes.
I think this is a really good, good question. If you remember, when I started this exploration some time ago, it is really about, we had a question come in commenting about something that was on our agenda. But this was never supposed to take place of somebody coming in and, in fact, I don't think we even bounded it by in being inclusive of those who want to just comment on anything. Email is certainly, proper for that, or if they can want to come in and say that. But I don't think we ever really envisioned the e-comment to capture just nebulous, discussions about the city. This was really about agenda items. That makes sense?
Thank you. Mr. Schnetzer?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So it's an interesting proposal, Ms. Padova, and it's one that I think in concept I support, because it would theoretically eliminate one of the big concerns that I've heard from a number of members of council here is this, for lack of a better word, impersonation, right? Just create a fake account and submit something, trying to influence the discussion. Obviously, you see that phenomenon occur on any number of various mediums out there, least of which is, or not least of which is Facebook. So to avoid our official record from falling, susceptible to that, I think the video in lieu of a written comment does make sense. If mechanically it can be done, I'm not opposed to giving it a shot. I mean, it would, I envision it essentially as just, you provide the 3-minute time frame and, somebody types in their name and address and a video pops up, and I would assume after some period of time the video is deleted after the transcript of what they've put, what they verbalized has been put into written format or something like that. But, so I don't know, I guess on that comment of the video or the proposal of the video, I think it's an interesting proposal.
If I may, so I think this may have been misunderstood at some point, because what I was proposing was actually not having a video uploaded on with this e-comment attached to an actual agenda item. What I was proposing was they could upload a video somewhere on our website. This e-comment wouldn't exist, and the video would simply be played at our meeting during public comment. And so the video would be played on our YouTube channel while it's streaming. We would watch it for the first time during our meeting, just like everybody else watching on YouTube. It would be entered into our meeting notes, just as if they were standing here. It would just be speaking up there rather than right here. So I'm not sure if that's what you guys were testing out or if you guys were testing out the e-comment. I'm not sure where this got lost in translation.
So we were just testing out the capability of somebody to be able to send us a video.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
I wasn't
If-
quite sure. Okay. Go ahead.
Mr. Weaver.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So if I may, just a clarifying question. And maybe this is best addressed to Mr. Schultz. We would use Granicus or whatever is our host for the submission, if email is not necessarily the easiest thing, but direct upload of the video to then be played. Is that?
Yeah, and so it wouldn't have to be attached. In my mind, what I was thinking was that it wouldn't have to be attached to an agenda item because our public comment, like Ms. McGregor stated, doesn't have to be about an agenda item because maybe they have a recommendation they would like to bring to our attention that's not on our agenda yet.
So, thank you. That's helpful. I'm sorry, may I? Madam Chair?
Yes.
So I think in previous research that's been done with Granicus is then in the potential uploading of any comments, be them video or otherwise, there was an option to select an agenda item, which if that was the will of council, you want it tied to a specific item, which I think I'm hearing from others, that would be a possible add-on feature to whatever portal is used to receive the video file.
So we are talking a couple different things. The e-comment feature is described very well. Okay, Ms. Padova's proposal is a different proposal. This would come in and be uploaded via our website, not through e-comment. And there would be no mechanism to actually attach it to an agenda item and have that be publicly accessible until the meeting played via YouTube and was streamed. And you guys would see it for the first time. The general public would see it for the first time. And then it would be memorialized in the minutes. And then as part of the YouTube video, it would not be memorialized inside of Legistar itself. Okay, so it would be uploaded through our systems and not through Legistar systems. But you guys are almost saying the same thing.
I'm gonna, I guess, weigh in here, just so you guys know where I am on this. I do not think it's a good use of time or resources. I would not be in favor of just accepting video comment for any reason on any topic. I don't see I'm just not, I would not be supportive of that. I would support, I think, like, when I guess what I was trying to summarize it, but I would support video, video that was from a verified account that was tied to an agenda item.
If I may.
Yes.
Are we allowed to verify the account if we were going to do it where it's uploaded onto the website? Would we be able to verify the account to?
Yeah, so we currently do not have a registration mechanism that I'm aware of. I'd have to look into that. We'd have to add that to our website capability, which would then register an account, an outside account, a public account with the city. And then from a process standpoint, if somebody did not comment on an agenda item, if that was your guys' proposal or what you guys implemented, then Jeremy, we just wouldn't show it at the meeting at that particular point. We would just, keep it to the side, just as if it was an email or something like that. So we would handle that from a process standpoint, not a technical standpoint.
Yes, Mr. Renner.
Madam Chair, thank you. All right, so if I can bring this home a little bit, it sounds like we have now 3 choices. Number 1 is we just pursue the e-comment path. Number 2 is we forego the e-comment and we go video and we go with Pedoza's stipulations with that. Or number 3 is that we push Kevin to the limits of technical and we try both. And I think in the interest of time and everything else, I think we need to just try to state which direction council would like to go in this, and that, put a stake in the ground and let's move it.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Mrs. Angelo.
it appears to me that we're assuming people have the ability to have videos, the ability to be able to give emails. There are many people in our community that don't have those things, and you know what they do? They come walking through this door. And if they can do that, I just don't see why we need to do any of this. It's not as though they're hundreds of miles away or in a different county or whatever. It's more meaningful when we're watching, people talk. And sometimes we have to give them extra time because they're coming up with something that is very valuable. Just my opinion.
Thank you, Mrs. Angelo. Mr. Schnetzer?
Yeah, so, thank you, Madam Chair. So I guess just to answer your questions, Mr. President, I don't know that our concerns about the verification or the risk of impersonating somebody or creating a fake account with regard to just the e-comment has necessarily been solved. So from that vantage point, I guess I would be in favor of perhaps just pushing that one to the side. And then if there is desire to increase accessibility for individuals that can't physically be present, if we want to further explore the video option to the extent that Mr. Schultz has the bandwidth to do so, I'd be in favor of at least going down that path and seeing what all it entails.
Thank you, Mr. Schnetzer. Any other comments tonight or direction so that Mr. Schultz can begin pursuing something further?
Just for the record, I do think that e-comment is a very slippery slope, and I hate that phrase. But we have all seen how people can be behind a keyboard, and I think putting their face to something and still having the accessibility is what I would be in favor of.
Mr. Weaver?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just as a point of addressing your questions and President Renner's concerns, I would be comfortable just pursuing the video option. I think from the beginning of when this was originally posed to council, I have been pushing for inclusion of commentary for individuals who could not make it down to our body, for whatever reason that may be, whether it's mobility, whether it's we're working in the evenings, children, whatever it may be, to provide some opportunity for members of our community to make their voice heard in a way that is no less meaningful than coming here to council. I think that the option to pursue some sort of video, and I hate to charge Mr. Schultz and our clerk with pursuing that further, but duly charged, I think, accomplishes that. And I think it hits a lot of the boxes on concerns about potential impersonation that the e-comment raised. And I just want to be clear, I hear my colleagues on that very much so, and I think that's great feedback. And so I'm happy to pursue just the video option, as I do think it satisfies a lot of those boxes. And I just want to offer a general thanks to my colleagues for being willing to look at this. So thank you.
Just as a final comment, oh, yes, Mrs. McGregor, I'm sorry.
I've been thinking about this while I've been making your comments, and number one, they can still email us all the time. I mean, it's like this was the only option they have. They can still, and almost everybody has access to a computer of some kind that they can call us, they can email. The video seems like not a bad solution to it, better than maybe the e-comment, but is there a way we could try it for like 6 months and say, we're going to change it for 6 months and see how it goes, and then alter it, change it, come back and revisit it if it doesn't work, if it's, it doesn't have to be set in stone for the rest of time. We could give it a trial. Could we do that?
Absolutely.
Or is it a whole lot of work and we just don't want to do it?
Well, we're working a lot of money. Let's see, what is that? What's the money on this?
I think the idea that we would tweak it, we will revisit it. We'll see how the implementation goes and how the use goes. I think all of that makes sense. I want to be clear that this, and I want it to be clear to the users, right? That this would be specifically for public comment, in lieu of hearing a visitor. So they need to be aware when they're uploading that video, that this is going to be made part of the public record. It's going to be played at a city council meeting. So we'd like it to be about topics that impact the general welfare of the community, versus it being something more private, which is, I think, what the question was, and I know that was maybe not understood perhaps by some of the other folks, but sometimes we get an email about a particular issue that a person might not want it to be, announced or read out loud at a public meeting. So this is where I find this to be different is that this is going to be specifically for a hearing of visitor, a remote hearing of visitor comment. And I just want to make sure that that's clear when people are uploading it, and it's clear to all of us tonight. So thank you. Thanks to everybody for your work on this and thoughtfulness on this. So timeline, maybe you guys can let us know perhaps when the next committee of the whole.
I'm sorry, are you looking for a specific rule to be voted on then?
Yeah, so I
Okay.
was just getting ready to mention that too. So I think that what we'll need, I think, an update on the tech end of it, and just maybe either a timeline on a mock-up or a beta version, and also a proposed council rule that we can take a look at the next committee meeting. Okay. All right, very good, thank you. All right, the next item on the agenda tonight is under B3, update from the Department of Public Service and Engineering regarding resident inquiries for a multi-use trail.
Yes. Thank you, Madam Chair, while our directors are walking up to the tables. Thank you again for accommodating the slight change in the agenda order. Item number 2, as it currently exists on your agenda, actually leads directly into the first action item. So for the benefit of continuity of dialogue, I think it would be helpful to discuss item number 3 first. This item pertains specifically to a discussion of a multi-use trail, specifically the concept of a multi-use trail that would extend from Headley Park south down Clark State Road, giving communities along the west side of Clark State Road walkability access to Gahanna and Headley Park. I think we all understand the need for walkability and connectivity within our community, and I think we all agree that parks, trails, sidewalks, multi-use paths are all an integral part of having that walkable, connected community. I know several of you had reached out and said, what is this about? I just mentioned it was about the Clark State Multi-Use Trail. Why is this on the agenda? Well, it's on the agenda because last week, I think it was within the last week, several of us received direct emails from residents asking about the possibility of and encouraging community leaders to look at putting a multi-use trail along Clark State Road, again, from Headley Park South extending down. To create walkability, connectivity, create safe passageway as well. Because of the level of inquiry that we had directly received from residents, as well as some of the social media engagement that we saw, we thought it might be helpful to have a discussion with council at this time. First of all, Committee of the Whole is usually the one time that we as the administration gets to have an informal dialogue with you as council. A number of things associated with this project that I think it would be helpful as council continues to receive perhaps reach outs about this, but just so we can have an opportunity to talk with you and perhaps shed a little clarity on some of the things that I saw in some of the emails. For example, what plans we do and do not have in place at this time, what we are currently working on as well, what might be involved in looking at a project of this magnitude. As certainly presents many complexities to it. And really have a high-level understanding of what kind of next steps would take as we look forward. We're working on a Parks Master Plan. We know a long-term community improvement plan and how maybe all of that folds in together. So again, I mentioned that a project of this magnitude would involve multiple departments here within the city. So we have multiple directors here to entertain you this evening. We have Director Farrell from Parks and Recreation, Caitlin Ridge, our Assistant City Engineer. Our City Engineer is at home and unable to be here this evening. And of course, as you all know, Director Crawford, our Director of Public Service and Engineering. So I'm going to look to Director Farrell maybe to kick us off with this.
Sure. Thank you so much. It's great to see you. My voice doesn't seem as loud. Are we good? Okay. So one, I'll just kind of start off with where we are with trails. Clearly, the Big Walnut Trail is our regional trail system, the Big Walnut, and we are very close to completing that last section, Trail Section 8 of the Big Walnut Trail. Along with that, we understand that the importance of having those east-west connections with that spine is very important to the city of Gahanna. Of course, over the last 2 years, we've only seen an influx of participation with our trails and bike routes. So we do have, of course, a formalized Big Walnut Trail plan. And again, like I mentioned, we are very close to finishing that. We do have a draft plan for those east-west connections. However, it hasn't been fully vetted with our boards and commissions, so it is still in draft form. Again, through the last couple years, we've, again, seen a lot of participation with those, not only trails, but bike routes. We, of course, have adopted a maintenance plan for our sidewalks. So instead of just moving forward with a multi-use trail plan, it was very advantageous for us to move forward with an active transportation plan. So that incorporates trails, that incorporates sidewalks, crosswalks, bike routes, anything that is in advocates for walkable or bikeable community. So we have submitted for an active transportation plan through ODOT, and what that is, it's ultimately an in-kind grant to actually have a firm work with us to get an active transportation plan. Obviously, the information that we have from our draft plan is still very much useful. We do utilize it. We actually have some active plans in place that have been speared from that draft plan, one of which is the Headley-Hanna connection. So we Council thankfully approved the ability for us to study what it would look like to connect Hanna Park to Headley Park. Of course, the two parks are very popular. We get a lot of activity there, but they're also connected to a lot of neighborhoods. So if we have the ability to get neighbors safely to and from parks, that's a win for everybody. So we have just entered into an agreement with OHM to have an alignment study, as well as gain some cost estimates to what that connectivity would look like. So we are very much active into our trails. We, as Mayor mentioned, are in our master plan, and our consultant has already mentioned how frequently our stakeholders have mentioned trail and how important it is to the community. So we, of course, want to continue to invest our time into making sure that we have a safe, walkable, bikeable community.
Director Farrell, can I ask, the active transportation plan funding that you submitted, when did you submit that, and is there an expected timeline for when we're to hear back from that?
Yes, so there's a tight turnaround. So we submitted in March. We expect to have an answer really at the end of May. We have to actively participate if we are awarded within 4 weeks of receiving the approval. And the expectation is that we have a formalized adopted plan by June of '23. So this is a fast moving if we are awarded.
Thank you.
So on the engineering side, we have, based on these inquiries, looked into this a little bit further about what it would take to design and construct a trail along Clark State Road. Clark State Road is a county-managed road. So that being said, we would have to coordinate closely with the county on anything that we would do along there. In addition, if you'll notice the map that we have up, the majority of Clark State is outside of the city of Gahanna corp limits. So in addition to coordinating with the county, we would have to also coordinate closely with Jefferson Township to get this trail done. To add to that complexity, Clark State Road is also a scenic byway, and that would introduce obstacles with clearing trees and things like that would also be necessary as far as constructing the trail. We did go and talk to the county to see if they had any plans for Clark State Trail in the future. They currently do not have plans for a trail in their capital improvement plan that I believe is for over 10 years.
10 years, yeah, they're 10-year.
And that was recently revised, so the next 10 years. And then also, as part of that, they know that there's been a lot of interest from the community on this. They have agreed due to that to provide or prepare a study this year to explore what the feasibility of putting a trail along Clark State Road would be. And then they will update us and we can discuss options from there.
Yes, yeah, so, Grant, hold on. So thank you, Caitlin. So after we received these resident emails, I had reached out to Cornell Robertson, our Franklin County engineer, just as Ms. Ridge just shared, to find out if this was even on their radar. Mr. Robertson shared that it's not in their 10-year CIP, which he had just finished. However, based on the conversation that we had, very generously agreed to have his staff take a look at a study of this, just to try to begin to identify what would be involved in this. Identifying some of the things that Caitlin just did, such as the scenic byway, et cetera. And then coming back to us, because I shared we were working on the Parks Master Plan as well as our own long-term capital improvement plan. So hopefully we would get a study, they would take a look at it, kind of figure out where it is on their, I guess in their plans and how that might fit, if that might change their plans, and then allow us to then incorporate that within our own long-term capital improvement plan, because we have hundreds of projects at this point that are lining up to be part of that. But then that would be up to council to have discussion too as to where that might fit and prioritize. So, sorry, Grant, I don't know if I took your thunder on that.
You captured everything I was going to say.
Say it anyway.
I was going to add to that. I know we did say that the active transportation plan that we're going after, Jefferson Township is also going after, it's my understanding. So again, if we're both going through this process and the county's getting the study, they'll help all of us together be able to have a better plan in the future.
Did I really take your talking points? I'm
Yes,
sorry.
you did.
Just maybe you were going to mention this, but where are we with the communication with Jefferson Township on this issue?
So we have not had any communication with Jefferson Township on this, because quite frankly, well, Grant, why don't you speak to State Clark Road and Clark State Road and the maintenance of that road?
Yeah, so Clark State Road.
I got
Now
you.
you got me all
I'm
screwed
so
up.
sorry. I said this was informal discussion.
Clark State Road is maintained by Franklin County. Geez, I can't speak now. So any trail connection in here would be in conjunction with Franklin County as the primary entity that would lead the trail improvement project. Of course, the township would have a say. They would likely be a part of it as well, because much of Clark State Road does abut the township. However, there is a lot of unincorporated land in and around and connecting to Clark State Road. So again, the county would really be the lead agency on any improvements out here. And it sounds like we're in a good position right now with the county, looking to take that first initial step to, doing the overall study on the high-level feasibility that could then potentially be incorporated into a partnership with the city, depending on the results of their study.
I was also going to add, so as Caitlin mentioned, Jefferson Township is going after the same active transportation plan. We have communicated in conjunction with what that means, because clearly any trails that leads into Jefferson Township is a benefit to Gahanna as well as Jefferson Township. So we have been speaking in coordination with what that would look like. It'll only help us to work together for those plans to benefit each other. The Big Wanna Trail is regional. There's no reason why our east-west connections shouldn't be regional as well.
And I would say we actually did reach out to Jefferson Township. What Director Farrell was having a conversation with their team when they indicated they were looking to seek funding for an active transportation plan as well. We actually suggested that we work on that together, knowing the areas that we have that kind of overlap. They did go back and talk to I'm assuming the trustees or the township administrator, and came back to us and said they preferred to just submit separately from us at this time. But we had proposed that. But we'll continue to have that dialogue with them and see where they end up with their funding as well.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, directors, and Caitlin as well. This was very helpful, and it's really good for us to get updates on these things and what grants you're pursuing, and it helps us do our jobs more effectively as well. And yes, Mr. Weaver.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First, allow me to just say thank you to the mayor and staff, administration here, for putting this on the agenda. I know I also received several emails, and food truck night last week received numerous requests on this as well. So I thank you for the quick turnaround for adding this to the agenda. I do want to specifically note that the residents that were sending those emails were all residents of that westernmost portion of off Clark State, specifically Theory and Uxbridge, which is the Gahanna-controlled portion. Yep, thank you, where the mouse is there. And the concern that was specifically voiced by them was trying to gain non-vehicular access to Creekside. And that's what prompted, so I love hearing about the Headley-Hanna potential connection, and as well as potentially all the way down through with the partnership with the county and the township. But I just wanted to highlight that fact, and I believe those are the residents who are planning on coming to next week's council meeting as well.
Sure.
For the hearing of visitors. So just put that on your radar.
No, I appreciate that. The emails that I had mentioned Creekside, but then they specifically talked about being able to walk and bike up to Hannah and Headley. But, and Grant, I'll turn this back to you. Even that Gahanna section, well, I'll let you address that.
Correct. So I guess there's two items that I could add to that. From this very high-level view, you see the, looks to be gray from here. That gray area actually does overlap Clark State Road and goes to the north side or the west side of Clark State Road. So there still is the jurisdictional challenges in there that would have to be, a part of a overall plan with Franklin County. The other piece is all these neighborhoods do have existing sidewalks. While it's not the most direct and efficient route to get there, there are sidewalks through there that will lead them back to Hamilton Road and eventually down to Creekside. I do understand it's not the most convenient, and everybody would like to do it on some multimodal or multi-use trail, but there is existing connectivity there.
But to Councilman Weaver's point, the fact that that's still in the kind of the green section, as you noted, that still would have to follow under the jurisdiction and work under the we'd have to partner with the Franklin County Engineers Office, and they would still ultimately be the controlling authority on that.
Thank you, and thank you, Mayor, that's
Sure.
really what I was leading to, so I appreciate it. I appreciate staff taking a hard look at everything, too. Just a quick clarifying question, the OHM plan, that is just for the Headley-Hanna connection, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
There is a separate, as part of an OHM contract, to review the Shaw Park to the library. So also getting some cost estimates and preferred alignments for that as well.
Thank you, and again, I appreciate everyone's time on this.
Madam Chair?
Mrs. Angelou?
I'd like to bring forth that, and I ask you where on Clark State, where we're going, but Obviously, that is not, a lot of that is not in our possibilities because it's not in the city of Gahanna. However, I want to talk more about safety. We have other places in our community that need to have sidewalks and trails to be able to be safe. And on Johnstown Road, West Johnstown Road, the fact that somebody has not been hurt is a miracle. Consequently, I would say before we would ever want to do something, first of all, if Jefferson Township pays for their part of it, that'll be a surprise to me. But because that's a pretty long place. But West Johnstown Road is something that, those are our children that are, and our kids that want to ride their bikes, and potentially, if you see it at between 3 and 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock at night, you can't go down that street because it's now all those cars are coming back. That has much more importance to me than doing that, because you can follow your way up there in this one. I understand, this is a good possibility, but it's not going to happen for many years when Johnstown Road should be happening right now.
Thank you, Mrs. Angelou. Mr. Renner?
Yeah, I think, Councilwoman Angelou, the basis of your comments are actually probably spot on, is in managing public expectations. It's a very wonderful thing, and please do not get me misunderstand for those who are watching. I think it's a wonderful thing that residents will pipe in and say, hey, I got an idea, maybe even a group of residents, if it's organic or not. It's a good thing, and it's a powerful thing for the people to be able to say, hey, this is something we want, especially in light that we have issue $12 to actually, look around. But the part that we haven't done a good job in telling our story, the last couple of years we've done better, but we do have a long list of projects that we have got to get to, as Councilwoman Angelou mentioned. And then Councilwoman Bowers mentioned to me her interest in James Road, where, needing a sidewalk, which I've talked about as well. Hines Road, we need, stuff there. And I'm sure everybody else can go on and on and on. Go look at our capital projects list that we have already, and you can see. So I really value dearly that residents piped in and said, hey, I got an idea. I value dearly that, Mayor, you and your staff took it upon this and look at, and said that, look, yeah, by the way, we're doing this other analysis and we can actually help this discussion going forward. And I deeply appreciate your creativity in doing that. There are many challenges I think that you guys have already talked about with multi-jurisdictional. You also have, no one talked about the creek that you have to cross, and so that's another fundamental thing. Another thing that would have to be talked about is all the land that would have to be acquired for the easements. So if you're asking me where to spend the money, I'm going to be looking at other things that we need to, that are much closer to home, as you entertain, and you may find grants out there to help us, but this one thing I would ask you to do, though, and maybe you're already doing this, so forgive me, but in your analysis, is that even the best route? Is there something else? You keep talking about and alluding to the east-west connectivities, and I think I'm waiting for, okay, yeah, what else, so maybe there's a report coming, and I would love to actually understand that, juxtaposed to, is this the best one where we should be spending, I'll give you a hint, it's going to be millions of dollars, or should there be another avenue that would even be more scenic for people? So then I'll shut up. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Oh, Mrs. McGregor.
I would kind of dovetail on what Mr. Renner said. It was when, we passed issue 12, we said there were years' worth of deferred maintenance that had to be done. And I mean, there is years' worth, and this was supposed to last for 20 years, and so we're at year 2 or 3, and so that means we still have lots of projects that were identified 2 or 3 years ago, and so not to say this isn't a good project, it's just going to have to maybe wait in line. So, you know, there's other things that have been identified to be ahead of it, and so hopefully we'll get there one day, but I mean, you know, now that we have money, everybody's like, wow, we can do this and this and this. Well, yes, but we have all these things that we have the backload that we have to bring up to finish first before we can start the new projects, which are wonderful projects. So that's all my comment.
Yes, Mayor.
Just very quickly, thank you. Thank you all for your comments. I very much appreciate that, and Councilman Renner, absolutely. To have residents speak up and say, hey, we would really like to have this, means everything, and to reach out. The reason I thought it would be fruitful for us to have this conversation today was given the amount of reach out that we had and the discussion that was happening about it, because I understand that a resident goes, well, we should just be able to put a sidewalk there. And I thought the same thing too a few years ago. Now I have a better understanding, because I've spent so much time with our friends in engineering, what all's involved in that and what all needs to happen with that. And I really thought it might just be helpful to take the time to just walk through, not only for your benefit as council folks, as you're out there talking with people, but to walk through, okay, here's all the things kind of that have to happen. But in the meantime, here's what we're already working on that segue with that. So thank you very much for letting me put this on the agenda for tonight and for the discussion. I very much appreciate it.
Not just letting, but encouraging. So we encourage the administration to come forward and have updates like this to us, and this is fantastic. It's great to hear about the Headley-Hanna connection, the grant submission. Thank you all truly for bringing us up to date on some of these items you're working on.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Can I ask something? The last part of the Big Walnut, which is coming up the most expensive, do we have any kind of options on that at this point that are?
So right now, the alignments are being reviewed by ODOT. It does cross the over 270 on Hamilton, so ODOT is in conjunction with that. So they are reviewing the alignments for their safety precautions. So once we get an approval there, then we'll be able to move it forward, and you'll be able to see those alignments.
It's the last part of it, and it would be so wonderful to get it finished.
I've heard so many times that it's the last portion for a reason. So it's not just number 8, but it was 8 because of the challenges with it. So we're very close.
What's the timeline, Director?
I'll look to Grant loosely, but we're hoping in the next 5 years we'll have a completed project.
Well,
Yeah, so the important piece with this is we are closer to completing Big Walnut Trail Section 8 than we ever have before ever. I know Carl Weatherholt worked on it, Rob Priestis worked on it, John's worked on it. There's been, I can't tell you how many different iterations of options. We're set up really uniquely right now in that ODOT is looking to do a replacement of the Hamilton Road Bridge, which will provide us the opportunity, the one and only opportunity, to make that connection. So thank you, Council, for approving our budget. That put some funds in there to start moving this forward. As Director Farrell said, we are working directly with ODOT right now to try and work through that, and we're very hopeful that we can get this started. I will say that the bridge replacement project has been on the docket for many, many years, and they keep punting it. There isn't much time left based on the condition of the pavement, so I don't expect there to be any more punting of that bridge replacement. I think the latest update has been fiscal year 23 to start this. I always get screwed up in my mind when that fiscal year starts, whether it's July or if it's in the end of June. So that's what we're looking at right now.
so Grant, if they begin it in fiscal year 23, completion in?
I honestly don't know that off the top of my head, but I would expect it to take a couple years to complete the construction.
Because in our discussions, I believe we were talking about the bridge work first, then the trail would come after that, because the bridge would need to be completed first. So we were looking 24, 25?
Correct.
Potentially?
Correct, and
Or
that is...
maybe 25, 26, given the bridge timing.
Yeah, and there are multiple pieces to the puzzle. I was focused on the bridge section, but yes, we do need to construct the multi-use trail that connects up to the bridge and to the rest of the trail system.
It's because of the level of traffic interruption, we want to pair them together so that we're not closing for the bridge and then closing for the trail. So we do want to work very closely to make sure that those are paired together so it's less interruption for the same project.
Excellent. Thank you. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you all so much. This is very helpful, and it's really great to hear that timeline, although it's not what I'd hoped, but
It's coming.
I saw a runner, crossing on the side of the road the other day, and I just hated to see that. And yeah, but it's good to know that we're continuing to move forward on it. So thank you for all your work. All right, the next item on the agenda tonight is the 2021 Sidewalk Program Update. Director Crawford? Oh, okay.
Actually be Assistant City Engineer, Caitlin Ridge.
Assistant City Engineer.
So we haven't provided you an update for a while since the February town hall that we held with the property owners as part of the 2021 sidewalk maintenance program area, our first sidewalk maintenance program for the city of Gahanna. So far, the 2021 sidewalk maintenance program has had some challenges, and we are delayed beyond our original planned schedule. So tonight, I wanted to take this opportunity to provide you with an update and provide some clarification on how we got to where we are at this point, and looking back at where we started in the development of the sidewalk program through to where we are today and what to anticipate coming. So starting, I need to get this going here. I don't know this going. There we go. Starting with the code development. So initial discussions on the sidewalk maintenance program began as early as fall of 2019. And then in the winter of 2020, we brought presentation to council over 3 different occasions to provide some options for the program and to ask for input from you all. As part of that process, there were some differing opinions about the development of the program. Therefore, administration moved forward with the development of the program and drafted revised code that was the best fit for our community. The resulting draft amended City Codes 521.06 and 903.01. Those were presented to council on May 24th of 2021. Those amendments to City Code were then adopted on June 21st of 21 and then became effective in July 21st of 21. So the next step was entering into contract with EMH&T. The purpose of the contract with EMH&T was to allow them to help us prepare and provide brochures and notifications to the residents to complete the sidewalk compliance inspections, to provide construction phase services for us, and to provide some legislative support. We received their contract in August 17th of 2021. We then brought that contract to council at the next committee meeting, which was on the 23rd of August. We brought it to council with a request for a waiver and emergency. However, council did not vote to let it go through as waiver and emergency. We went through a first and second reading with that program. The mayor then was authorized to enter into contract with them by October 20th, and the contract was signed by October 25th. As a result of this, we delayed the sidewalk maintenance schedule program about 1 month. During that time, we also brought forward on September 20th of 21 the sidewalk maintenance program area for the 2021 program area. That was then approved by council there on the 20th of September. So due to the delay of the code development and the contract with EMH&T, the timeline for the first program was condensed. In addition, the sidewalk inspections were then pushed into the winter season, which introduced several weeks of weather-related delays. So now talking about the 2021 program from there. Once we got the program area approved, we had the contract with MH&T, we could proceed with doing our work. So residents and property owners were within the adopted program area were mailed a notification letter and information about the program on a brochure on December 3rd. Then by December 13th, MH&T began their sidewalk inspections for the program. 3 days later, I went out and we started our quality control review with them of the inspections. This being our first program, we both had to learn how we were going to apply the sidewalk maintenance criteria that we had developed. So there was a learning curve there for both the city and the EMH&T who was doing those inspections. We continued to coordinate with them for that quality review throughout the entire inspection process. But due to these issues and weather delays, the inspections were not completed by mid-January as they were originally planned. However, we feel that we owe it to the residents to make sure that the criteria is fairly and accurately applied. So we wanted to make sure that everything was being done correctly and that what they received from us on their notice, they could have confidence in. We held a town hall meeting for the residents, as I mentioned, I believe earlier on February 2nd of 2022. At that time, we provided an update on the program and answered any questions that were had by the residents and the property owners. The initial inspections by MH&T of the entire program area were delivered to us by March 4th of this year. And at that time that we began a quality control of the entire program. So I personally went out and walked every sidewalk panel in the program area and evaluated them to make sure that it was being applied as the city wished. So I also made updates and adjusted the data based on what I found out there and returned that to MH&T by March 24th of 2022. So since that point in time, it was handed off to them to start summarizing the inspection data and to prepare the notices that the residents would receive that explain what the defects were found on the sidewalks adjacent to their property. Once those notices are finalized, they're currently being finalized, we plan to bring a resolution of necessity with permission to bid to council on May 23rd. So we anticipate the resolution of necessity, which allows us to provide notices to residents or notices to be served to the property owners, and the permission to bid to be effective by June 6th. So the notices then would be served to the residents soon thereafter, June 6th, sometime there in July of 2022. Following that process, the residents will receive information on various things like opting out, what next steps they have until we begin construction as part of the sidewalk program. We anticipate to bid for construction in fall of this year. However, we do not plan to actually begin construction until spring of 2023. We do not feel that we can start and complete the entire program in the fall before we hit winter and not conducive to doing concrete work at that time. So instead of leaving residents with partial repairs on their property, we're hoping to start it in the spring of next year and allow continuous work. We would then complete the construction in summer of '23 and then bring forward special assessment after its completion and schedule with council at that time a public hearing. That public hearing would be used to formalize the costs that would be assessed to the property owners. We would then expect that special assessment to be effective in 2024. So overall, this kind of summarizes where we are with the 2021 sidewalk maintenance program, what you can see coming As I mentioned, we do have a few items that are coming forward in the coming weeks and the coming months. It is a tight timeline, and so any delays that we have at this point in time could affect that schedule a little bit more. So keeping that in mind. But we also, we are preparing for the 2022 sidewalk maintenance program at the same time. And so we do plan or have hopes here this month to also bring you the 2022 program area to be adopted. We are already in contract with EMH&T to help us with the 2022 program. Thank you to you all. And we will be bringing back, once that's adopted, we have the schedule. We will have more time with the 2022 program. Overall, like I mentioned before, with the 2021 program, we were kind of condensed a little bit. We should have more time. However, that schedule still is going to have very little flex to it. What we ended up with the 21 program was inspections in the winter, which caused even more delays. So we really scheduled it out to ensure that the inspections, for instance, aren't going to happen in the winter, that they're going to happen in the summer or the spring when it's more conducive to doing that type of work and we could see less delays. So just wanted to give you an outlook on what's coming, and if you have any additional questions.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Mrs. Angelou.
So will 22 be overlapping with, I mean, I know they overlap, but will it be a little bit, won't that be a little bit difficult to get both of those at the same time, or?
So they will be overlapping, and once we get the program going, there will be 3 different program areas that we'll be
Yes.
working on at any given time. However, I think what you're getting at is with us delaying the construction of the 21 program to next spring, how is that going to work with the construction of the 2022 program?
Correct.
So how we have it planned out, we would be going to construct the 2022 program next summer. So we would actually, they would kind of, one would follow the other. They would both be happening at that time. We do not have any concern about those both
Okay, good.
in that order. That shouldn't cause problems.
Then it'll be probably in 23, it would be just like it was normally potentially going to be.
Yeah, so we're in 22 now. So yes.
Depending on weather, I'm sorry, climate.
Yeah, so yes, 2022 program to be constructed in summer of 23. And then the end of 23, we would hope to then bring the program area, or the beginning of 24, the program area for the 2023 program. And then the
You've got this, I got it.
yeah, construction from there, right? Then that follows. So we would bring that forward and then have planned to do construction for that in 2024. If I got that all straight
you got that.
in my head here. So yeah, they are overlapping, but the long-term goal, right, in future programs is at the end of the year to bring you the program areas for adoption. That way, then we can start the inspections in the spring, and then we can do the notices, allow people to decide if they want to do the construction themselves, and then followed by doing construction after that. So we allow folks to do their reviews in that summertime period, and construction to follow either that fall or even potentially into the next spring.
Thank you.
Just a question on, kind of to follow that, with the 2021 program going out to bid in fall of '22, would you be potentially ready to have the '22 program bid at the same time? Would there be an economy of scale there to consider?
So we plan to actually bid the 21 program the end of this year. That will benefit us. One is that then we get this year's prices to do work next year. So in doing that, we will not be ready at the end of this year to bid the 2022 program.
Okay.
So we would bid that out probably by like winter, early next year, that we could bid that one out.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Schnetzer, did you?
My question was answered with Councilwoman Angelou's
Okay.
questions.
Just in terms of process, I know that timeline is important, and you've done a great job at spelling that out and explaining why you're on a tighter timeline with this for us. If you, for the resolution of necessity and the permission to bid that you anticipate to be on the next committee of the whole agenda, if you, just to make sure that our clerk has enough time to get the legislation written for publication, draft agenda, if you could have that uploaded by Wednesday, that would be really helpful.
Yes, we are working on it. We've been working on it, and hopefully we do plan to have that up there in a week advance.
Okay, great, thank you. Any other items or discussion on this? Okay. All right, thank you. Deputy Engineer, Assistant Engineer, Miss.
Yeah, Assistant City Engineer, yeah.
Assistant Engineer Ridge. Next item on the agenda, we're moving on to item C1, an ordinance to adopt amendments to Gahanna Code Section 521.06, and this is ordinance 25-2022. Ms. Director Crawford.
Assistant City Engineer is going to present this one as well.
Assistant City Engineer Ridge.
So the code change, so as part of the sidewalk maintenance program, property owners have the option to allow the city to complete the repairs for them and then repay the city those costs through an assessment on their property taxes. Or they have the option to opt out of the program and complete the repairs themselves. At the town hall meeting that we held back in February that I just mentioned, the city received feedback from the residents that they would like the option to be able to pay that cost for the repairs that the city makes in full instead of it being assessed to their property taxes. So there's currently no mechanism in our code to allow the property owners to pay that cost of repairs made by the city outside of the assessment process. So therefore, we're proposing to add a subparagraph to Code 521.06, Section J, and I wanted to read that to you. Let me get to it here. So the addition is, any persons affected by this section may opt to pay all the costs determined pursuant to subparagraph 2 above directly in lieu of having said costs assessed against real property. Said cost must be paid in full within 30 days of the date of said public hearing referenced in subparagraph 2 above, or the assessment will be issued as outlined herein. So the public hearing, I just want to mention, the public hearing is what we talked about as we were going through the timeline that we would schedule with you all. That is when we would present the findings of the inspection and what, not the findings of the inspection, I'm sorry. We would present the actual cost of the repairs that were made at each property. So then once we have that public hearing, they would have the 30 days to make that payment in full before council would go through to levy an assessment against the property for that cost. So allowing this, I just did also want to mention that our city attorney has reviewed this code, and we've coordinated with the director of finance to make sure that we have the necessary accounts set up to allow this code change to happen if it is so passed. So allowing payment in full outside of an assessment, it's beneficial not only to the resident but also to the city. As I mentioned, this is we're paying this cost and then we're getting reimbursed through the assessment as it currently is. So allowing them to pay this cost outside of the assessment means that the city will get reimbursed for their cost quicker. Other communities in the area that have sidewalk maintenance programs there are others who are also set up this way who have done this successfully. So this would not be something that is unique to the city of Gahanna's sidewalk maintenance program. So if this code is adopted, we intend to make the property owners aware of this change by providing that information in their notice that they will receive in June that provides them with the defects that were found on their property. So we respectfully request legislation to amend Gahanna Code Section 521.06. Any questions?
Thank you for outlining this for us and summarizing. So as I understand it, there's 3 ways for a resident to pay or be compliant if they're in the sidewalk program area. So one is if their property is identified as needing a sidewalk repair and they're in the program area, they can opt out, hire their own contractor, and pay their own costs within the appropriate time period. And the repairs have to be reviewed by the city. 2, they can opt in, and now once they've opted in, they have the choice to either have the cost, they would be part of the bulk cost that the city is able to contract, and they could either opt for the assessment, which would give them the ability to pay that through a tax assessment over 5 years through their property taxes, or they could pay it in one lump sum to the city within 30 days of the public hearing.
Correct.
So they'd have the benefit of ostensibly the reduced cost because it would be a bulk rate, essentially. Do I have that right?
Correct.
Okay.
Except for the fact that they're automatically in
Yeah, I was
unless
gonna
they opt out.
Yeah, I
Yes.
was going to
I'm
clarify
sorry.
that. Yeah, that you're automatically in. They have the option to opt out. They will have to notify us in writing of that. But if we do not receive that, then you are automatically in. And there is another kink, I guess, to that as well, is if you opt out and you don't complete all the repairs that were requested or they were not done appropriately, which we are going to be inspecting to ensure that they are, then you will be re-entered into the program and we will do those repairs. And again, then they would have the option to pay those outside of the assessment in full or through the assessment at 5 years at 0%.
All right. Mrs. McGregor.
So if they're opting out, they have to have the repairs completed before the city does the other repairs, correct?
Correct. They'll have 105 days from the date that they receive the notice to complete the repairs, and the city will not begin construction until after that time period has ended.
Gotcha.
If I may. When they receive the notice, that's also when they will know what the cost is if they want to pay it up front rather than.
Yeah, so the notice will have several things in it. One will be the identification of each of the panels that were identified to have a defect. It will let them know what the primary defect was. It will also give them the estimated cost to make that repair as part of the program that the owner themselves will be responsible for. So the items that the city will take care of, such as removal of a tree as part of the program, are not included in that cost estimate. It's just the owner's cost that they would be responsible for. And then we would also outline, we'll have a letter to outline what those next steps is, when they have the option to appeal, when their deadline for opting out, and their deadline for completing the repairs if they choose to opt out.
If program construction hasn't started yet, and would they be given an extension for weather? I asked because I had a neighbor that got a notice, I think in February, and was told to bring his sidewalk up to code within 30 days, but it was February.
So as part of the program, I mean, we do anticipate having those out there in June. So the construction.
I'm wondering if that was a code enforcement?
Yeah.
That was a
Issue.
code enforcement issue, but I'm just sort of overlaying that on this because I know, I don't have the timeline pulled up again, but I know that if you did inspections last,
Well, we just finished the inspections this March.
oh, okay.
So the notice is that, say what those inspections are going to be provided to the property owners is going to be delivered to the property owners pending everything goes smoothly from here in June. And so, in June, that starts their timeline of 105 days. So that means that they will have, that time period is all within summer. So there should be no concerns with them being able to get it completed within that 105 days in the summer season.
I guess I'm not so much concerned about this cycle, but go ahead, Mayor.
Well, I was going to, I don't want to segue from this conversation, right, because I wanted to address the question that you raised, which is a code enforcement issue, which would be a little separate from that. So I was going to respond to your question if you want to finish the thought on that first, but.
Yeah, I guess just clarifying, in the event that the notices were sent out at a different time of year, would you consider, is there some mechanism for extensions?
So we're setting up the schedule so that that's not going to happen. Our intent is to not send out notices right before winter and then say that there's 105 days and you're in the middle of winter trying to make those repairs. So we would, for instance, if we had completed the repair or the inspections in the fall, we're not going to send out the notices in the fall. We're going to wait until closer to spring, February, March, something like that, to give them the 105 days to then do that inspection. But we are very aware of that and adjusting our schedule. As I mentioned earlier, when we're planning out these future programs, we're trying to make sure that they happen in the season that's appropriate for the stage that we're at with the program.
Thank you, Ms. Ridge. And just in general with contractors, I know we're getting our driveway replaced and signed a contract last year, and it'll be sometime later this summer that we'll actually get our driveway fixed. But it just kind of making sure, and it sounds like you're very resident-centered in how you're thinking about this, so thank you.
So to respond to your earlier question with regard to perhaps your neighbor who received a code enforcement.
It was a code issue, yes.
So they'll receive a notice. So we are receiving those now. Now that people know that we have a sidewalk maintenance program, we are getting residents reaching out wanting their neighbors to be fixing their sidewalks right now. So I suspect our code enforcement folks will be busy too. But to your question, so when they get a notice of violation, it's here's something that you need to fix, you have 30 days to fix it. If then in 30 days it's not fixed, then ostensibly code enforcement would go back. Obviously, we're not going to expect somebody to fix a sidewalk in the middle of February, but they will follow back up with them again and I will look to our city attorney to walk me through this process and correct me if I'm wrong, but if after they're revisited and it still has not been fixed, then they'll receive a citation, they would come into mayor's court, and deal with our prosecutor, city attorney sitting here as well. But in your case, for example, if you have engaged a contractor, and because it's the contractor's schedule, I would suspect that perhaps someone from the city attorney's office would see that as proof that you are taking remedial efforts and work with you on that.
I do not have a code violation. This is just private drive. Just
I
for
know. I was
No,
using
I
that
get
as an
it.
example
Yeah.
because you sign a contract today, especially in today's world, right, where contractors are hard to find and work is backlogged, and if somebody's taking the action and can show that there's taking those mitigation or remedial efforts, of course we're going to work with that resident and come to some consensus as to what will happen.
Yeah, the notice of violation is a little misnomer. They're saying there's a violation, but not that you have a violation. They say fix it or you'll get a citation. And then if they work with code enforcement, they work with people all the time, giving them more and more time, so. And then again, if they do get the citation, then they come into me, same thing, I just want it fixed. So I'll work with them, try to get it fixed, so.
Okay. All right, so this ordinance, back to ordinance 25. This is on for first,
Do we have emergency waiver on this?
no emergency
Oh,
in the
that's right.
waiver on this at this time.
No.
So it'll be on for first reading next week's meeting. Item number 2, motion number 12, 2022, a motion authorizing the Director of Public Service and Engineering permission to bid the East Johnstown Road Trail. Director
My turn.
Crawford? Okay.
So this project will install roughly 1,200 feet of multi-use trail that will connect a couple of subdivisions along with the YMCA and a skilled nursing facility that are along East Johnstown Road, right at River Ridge Boulevard and YMCA Place. So we're especially requesting a motion permitting the formal bid of this project. Council has previously approved $300,000 worth of TIF funding through past budget approval processes. Because of unforeseeable cost escalations, we are requesting a supplemental appropriation in the amount of $130,000 from the unencumbered balance of the North Triangle TIF. This is located on East Johnstown Road, of course, right where the trail's going. The additional funding will cover construction administration, inspection, and of course, increased construction costs due to inflation. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Anything from council?
Where is this actually going to be done on Johnstown? I know you said, but which side of?
It would be the west side or the north side, however you would like to look at it.
Okay, all right, thank you.
All right. So the motion will be on regular agenda at next meeting, and then the ordinance would also be on for first reading. Okay. Item number 4, it's another motion, 11-2022, a motion authorizing the City of Gahanna's participation in the Southwest Ohio Purchasers for Government Road Salt Cooperative bid for the 2022-2023 winter season.
So the City of Gahanna is part of the Southwest Ohio Purchasers for Government, SWAP 4G, as I'm going to call it from now on. It is a cooperative purchasing agency, and they partner with other governmental agencies to cooperatively purchase road salt for the winter months. So as members, we are eligible to partake in that. So we are respectfully requesting legislation authorizing the city to participate in the bidding process for our next season's salt purchase.
Any comments or discussion? Consent? All right.
I do have one question about
Yes.
this. If I remember correctly, please correct me if I'm wrong, when we're talking about the facilities that our, what's it called, the salt?
Salt dome?
Yes. I believe somebody said that it's too small for us to get like a break on, basically to buy it in bulk, what we need, and get a break in the price. Is that correct?
Yeah, there are a couple ways that we can acquire salt. SWAP 4G, the SWAP 4G program, we let them know how much salt we want to purchase. So we try to anticipate the amount of salt that we'll need this next winter, and so that's what they'll put on the bid. They do not penalize us if we do not reach that level. Now, there is another purchasing agency through ODOT that we could purchase salt from where we would be penalized if we did not utilize all of our salt. So we are kind of pigeonholing ourselves to this one cooperative purchasing group. So yes, we could potentially see lower salt prices if we could go to the other cooperative purchasing group if we had the storage space available to us in our salt dome.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that for me.
No problem.
Just one thing before we adjourn. Do we want to put motion 12 authorizing permission to bid the East Johnstown Road Trail on consent as well? Sure. Okay. Okay, so both motions will be on consent. The ordinances will be on for first reading. All right. And with that, if there's nothing else tonight, we will adjourn tonight's meeting. Thank you all.